Florida taking down number 9 Ole Miss, 24-17. Let's go over the highest graded players in this Florida win, starting off with wide receiver Elijah Badger with a 78.2 grade. Jake Slaughter, 78 grade. Offensive tackle Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, 76.9. Offensive guard Damian George Jr., 74.5. Offensive tackle Austin Barber, 71.5. How about 4 of the top 5 non-quarterbacks of Florida coming along the offensive line in this one? And DJ Lagway rounding it out with a 72.1 grade. Let's go over to Ole Miss with their highest graded players in their third loss of the season. Offensive tackle Micah Pettis, 76.2. Safety John Saunders Jr., 74. Edge defender Jared Ivey, 72.9. Offensive guard Jeremy James, 71.8. Edge defender Princely Iman Mielin losing to his former school with a 71 grade. He has some interesting video came out afterwards, Dawn, of him going after some fans a little bit. That was a little weird. Then Jaxson Dart, 87.6. Jaxson Dart played really well. A couple big mistakes down the stretch, but I thought Dart played really well, honestly. But Dawn, for you, what was the stat that told the story in Ole Miss's third loss of the season? Now, all of a sudden, Ole Miss might be on the outside looking in for the college football playoff.
Well, and I think I have something here for Dart, but I actually think you should go here first with yours because it's going to build into what we have and what happened at the end of the game here, and it really tells the story of most of this game. And Ole Miss, oh man, this is a tough one. This is a tough loss, but I think you go ahead and go first, and I can build off of that with mine because I think what you have is really the main thing here when you talk about Ole Miss losing a game of this magnitude to a team that was, what, 5-5?
Yeah.
Go right ahead because it needs to be said.
Listen, I don't want to say Florida didn't win this game because they absolutely won this game. But Ole Miss, in a lot of aspects, like you look at the stats and you go, wait a minute, how did Ole Miss lose this game, right? They had 120 more yards than Florida. They had more EPA per play. And the issue was the miscues. They messed up time after time in high leverage situations. 5 for 18 on third down and fourth down. They were 3 for 14 on third down, 2 for 4 on fourth down. And they had 3 trips to the red zone and had 0 points to show for it. They went for it on a 4th and 1 early on in the game. J.J. Pegues on a wildcat was stuffed. Our guy, J.J. Pegues, the defensive tackle, he was stuffed. Then they missed a 42-yard field goal. Another 4th and 1. Another J.J. Pegues wildcat. And again, another stuff. So as if the first one wasn't enough, they ran the same exact play again, and they got stuffed again on 4th and 1 in the red zone. They had 6 drops in this game. 2 of those drops would have been touchdowns. So 6 drops as well, 2 turnovers, including the interception at the end of the game. Dalton, Ole Miss could not get out of its own way. Why win when you can lose, right? As a great Dave Safaro said, why win when you can lose? Ole Miss kind of lived up to that on Saturday.
Yep, and Lane Kiffin had to stick to his guns, and several things became a factor here, and these are the flaws with Ole Miss offense. 1, too reliant on deep balls, right? We've talked about that all year. 2, underrated thing here. They're not very good at running the ball.
No,
they're not. And why do they constantly go to Pegues, a 325-pound defensive lineman in short yardage situations? Because he's actually their best option. We've seen it all. He's really been their most effective short yardage option, which tells you all you need to know about their run game. 3, you mentioned Florida's offensive line was really good. Ole Miss offensive line has played pretty poorly for 6 or 7 weeks, and this was actually a little bit better than they'd played in the last month and a half. But it's still not great. As a unit, they graded like a 70.
It's the biggest issue. The whole team is the biggest issue, is the offensive line.
And what that all creates through the first 3.5 quarters is the question that I think and Jaxson Dart's had a great year, right? By the grades, and the stats are great. And the stats are always great in this offense, right, with Lane Kiffin. But can he carry you through a lot of that stuff like some of the other great ones can, right? First 3 quarters. 93.3 passing grade with 6 big-time throws, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns. Fourth quarter, 4 for 10, 34 yards, 2 interceptions, 38.1 passing grade. There was 2 drops mixed in there, including the 1 big-time throw to Jordan Watkins in the end zone. That's one of the touchdowns you mentioned that would have tied the game. Took 2 sacks in the fourth quarter. There is not enough here on offense to support Jaxson Dart in times like these. And clutch moments like this when they're behind and it's obvious drop-back situations have always been the question with Jaxson Dart. Everything wrong with the Ole Miss offense came out in this game.
Yeah.
Every last thing. The offensive line, players not named Jaxson Dart had 21 carries for 70 yards. And it's been like that. This is not nearly the first week. It's been like that all season. They can't run the ball. They lost Quinshon Judkins to Ohio State. They can't run the football. The offensive line is still the weakest part of this team, and Jaxson Dart, maybe in a moment where he could have bailed them out and had a heroic, maybe even Heisman-level moment and all of that, and you feel for him because you make mistakes at the end of a game and you see maybe your playoff hopes end here possibly, and depending on all this, obviously all the other chaos, so maybe not. But this was the moment where maybe Dart could have bailed him out of all those mistakes, and he couldn't do it either. So, yeah, again, I think that's the big thing for me. You saw every last thing wrong with Ole Miss offense. We've seen it in spurts this year. We've seen different things fail them at times this year. And Trey Harris was back in this game and then went out with an injury again, and they just couldn't find it. And they made so many mistakes, and now their fate's just hanging in the balance, and I don't know that they're going to get back in this picture with just a win over Mississippi State next week.
No, and listen, 7 big-time throws for him in this game. It's a career high for him. He's never had 7 big-time throws in a game. Few quarterbacks have 7 big-time throws in a game and still lose. And yeah, I just think a lot of miscues, and some of it was on Dart. I'm not denying that. Obviously, the two turnover-worthy plays in the fourth quarter were huge, but at the same time, he did play really well.
You very rarely lose games with your quarterback making 7 big-time throws.
Yeah.
That's almost not a thing. But look, you mentioned it. 0 points. Not just 3 field goals.
No.
3 blanks in the red zone. That'll do it. You want a team to pull off an upset, it's red zone, it's third downs, it's turnovers.
Yeah. If they kicked 3 field goals, Dawn, they would have won this game by 2.
Yeah.
So you can't have 0 points on 3 trips in the red zone. Absolutely not. My most impressive, I want to go with Caleb Banks, the defensive tackle for Florida. He had 2 sacks, 1 hit, and 7 pressures against Ole Miss. 2 other pass rush wins as well. Also had a tackle for loss. He's 6'5", 325 pounds, so he's a massive player. Bullied Ole Miss's offensive line. He forklifted Dalton on one play. The center, Reese McIntyre, forklifted him into Jaxson Dart on one of them. It was insane. Also had a pressure when he was lined up as edge defender. So a 325-pound edge defender also still got a pressure on Jaxson Dart. So the entire Florida defensive line, the entire Florida defense had a really good game. But Caleb Banks especially, I want to shout out here because he was really good, especially as a pass rusher against Ole Miss.
Yeah, he was fantastic. The defensive line has been really good the last few weeks. And honestly, my most impressive, I'm looking through the grades. I'm trying to find like a singular guy, somebody that dominated this game for Florida. And you know what? I think at this point I just have to credit Billy Napier.
Good call.
Who was earlier in the year on the hottest seat in college football, right? And everybody was just waiting for him to get canned. And he's got this team. Think about what he's had this team do lately. They took Tennessee to overtime, right? And they barely lost that game. Georgia, they play a pretty good – they were tied with 5 minutes left against Georgia, and they might beat them if Lagway was healthy for the entire game, right? They dominated LSU last week, and they found a way to win this game. Yes, Ole Miss made all the mistakes, but when another team has all their mistakes, you take advantage of them. The way Billy Napier has this team playing, DJ Lagway 4-0, I think it is, at home in home starts. I mean, they're suddenly, over the last month, has become hope for the Florida Gators when – 6-7 weeks ago, it was all despair and who's getting fired and this program's a train wreck and where's Lagway going to leave and go to, and now he's got something to build on, right? And I think, look, they still need more work on defense. Absolutely. You mentioned the 7 big-time throws. There was guys open that dropped the ball or even, that Dart missed in the fourth quarter and all of that. But Billy Napier is looking like he's going to go 7-5, assuming he beats Florida State next week. And we thought there was no way he'd go 7-5 with this schedule.
Hell no.
With this schedule in the preseason, with Miami, with the SEC gauntlet as the hardest schedule in the country. They go, 6-6 if it's that in a bowl game, whatever. Making a bowl game for this team with this schedule and their quarterback situation,
absurd.
It is absurd, especially the way it's gone and the roller coaster that we got earlier in the year. But no, it's just an incredible job by him getting this team to play together through all of this.
There's a very strong argument to be made that going into the last week of the regular season, Florida should be ranked. And if you told me that going into the season, I would say no way. There's no way. They'd have like 2 or 3 wins. There's no way.
Imagine what we would be thinking if they had found a way to beat Tennessee in overtime.
And Lagway was healthy against Georgia. They had 3 losses. They'd be in the playoff.
Oh, at 9-3 with this schedule,
yeah, they're in the playoff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, that'd be insane.
It's an amazing thing they're doing right now to turn this around within the season And now you've got all this hope going into next season. I know our good friend Trevor Sycamore is jumping out of his shoes right now.
Yeah, shout out Trevor, because that was a massive win. And now Dawn, with the money they're saving by not firing Billy Napier, there's a lot of reports coming out saying they're using that money to go hard in the transfer portal. And I think Florida could be a very, very scary team to watch next year. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.